We have an innovation issue coming up, but not innovative technology, but rather how to be more innovative. You know, how do we move from inspiration to perspiration and to product, or move from idea to innovation in your practice, your hospital, your medical system? So let's talk about you, and let's talk about how to become an innovator. And for this, I would like to talk to Dr. Uday Kumar, who is a cardiologist and a cardiac electrophysiologist, but you might be more interested in finding that he is the founder, president, and CEO of Element Science, Inc., and the founder of iRhythm Technologies. There, the Zeo patch was on our cover not too long ago. You've gone from being the card electrophysiologist to actually creating product and getting it out there.
Right.
A lot of cardiologists, particularly on the intervention side, are very creative. How do you innovate yourself? How do you get to that point where you get a product and you get it out there?
Right, it's a good question. So I think the first thing that's really important for physicians, and I have a lot of fellows in the teaching I do at Stanford as well, come to me, and particularly a lot of young fellows these days, think about how do I do both? And I think the first question is, you got to be good at one thing. And so, so the first thing I'd be like, first determine, are you primarily a physician who takes care of patients, or are you primarily someone who likes being an entrepreneur? Because to be good at either is 150% effort. So for me, even though I've fully triply boarded and everything, at some point I stopped practicing because it's not possible to do both really well. So in terms of innovation, if you're a physician and you see things in your clinical practice, it's not about like, I have the best way to solve it, because that's typically, and I have this widget and I came up with this idea. That's great, and that's a good starting point to just exhibit that you're interested in it. What I really say then is you take a step back, and a lot of what we do at Stanford Biodesign, where I was a fellow and I still teach, is think about, is the problem that or is the thing that your widget, is the problem that it's solving something that's your problem, your hospital's problem, or really an important problem everywhere? Right. So really, you have to take some time and not fall in love with what you're developing, and really try to understand, is there something of value here that with good development, good investment, and good clinical data would really change or be meaningful to clinical practice? So that takes coming to conferences like this, speaking to colleagues of yours, speaking to colleagues who might be able to say like, yeah, that's a great thing. I have that problem all the time too. The hard part is it's hard not to fall in love with your ideas. It's difficult to take a step back and be rational about it. But if you can, and you really then go through these steps to understand this is a real problem that's not solved well by what's out there, and here's something better, I think the next step is then to figure out what next? How do you really go about doing something and making something realizable if you have a full-time day job?
Yes.
And I think that's where the challenge is. And I think one of the things I teach a lot of fellows and other doctors who come to me is like, you need to either, if you're in an academic setting or you're in a community hospital, but you have friends, you need to start trying to figure out who's in your network of people who might be able to develop the idea that you have. Again, obviously, if you're an academic institution, first make sure it's disclosed to your university and all the rest, but then really understand what's your role. I think there's also another fallacy that being an innovator makes you a billionaire. Rare, extremely rare. I think the other thing is it's like you're doing this because you think there's a better way to help your patients. If you have that mindset and you think it's a real problem, then you'll be more open to like, hey, I have a full-time day job. I love seeing patients. I love treating them. But I think this is really important. Find other people who can be as passionate, but maybe more on the R&D, on the engineering, on the development side, and through incubators, through affiliated schools and then university, through your network, your cousin who's a technologist in the Bay Area, maybe he knows somebody where you are. There's also geography. You know, the fact of the matter is different parts of the country do things different well, and the different skill sets are represented there. You may have to say like, hey, this is an idea, I have some intellectual property on it, but it's best served because there's this guy over 3,000 miles away who might be more likely to develop it. But always predicated on doing what you do best, focusing on patients. Now, if you're of this mindset like, you know, I love taking care of patients, but I really believe in this, and I've talked to a lot of people and they also believe in it. If you really want to make a go of it, and you realize that you know for most of these things they take a fair amount of money to get a medical product out, are you willing to take a step back? And again, oftentimes in medicine, after going through residencies and fellowships and getting your first job, and at that point in life, spouses and partners and children and all the other important things in life, that's a big change. You also have to look inward and say, like, are you of the, is your nature to be, not have a job, not have a steady income, not be doing something that helps society every day and taking a risk? And, you know, some people can, like for me, it was, I knew I wanted to get into device development from medical school and kind of pursued a path to end up where I am now. But I think for people in mid-career, it's a really, really important life decision because the vast majority of things fail. That's good or bad because in failure you can learn things that you can apply to the next project or the next project. In the Bay Area, we often say fail early, fail often. But it's hard when you have a mortgage and private school and all the rest. And so it's also then talking to your partners if you're in a practice or you're a chief or whatever it might be, saying, how is this, how can I do this? How can I carve out time to potentially allocate to figure out what the right pathway forward is? And again, the good thing is more and more people are thinking of innovation, so maybe there might be opportunities, but it comes at some economic cost, and you have to be ready to accept that because that's a trade-off for you pursuing your dreams.
Well, and medicine is so busy today, you have to carve out time to think.
Exactly. Basically, that's the first step. Think about what's next, and then determine, is there a real path there? Because that's just the beginning. The reality is if you really want to get products to patients, it costs money, and typically not insignificant sums. And to do that, it's great when physicians are part of leading a team because investors think, wow, here's the inventor, here's the person who knows the need. That's great that they're going to be devoting their full time, but that's extremely rare. Most times it'll be a physician founder or someone who's in a basic science lab who lends their name from a scientific and clinical standpoint, but operationally there's a team of people who've done this before or who can really take an idea forward. So you have to determine, and that's probably the more likely model of innovation for most physicians. I'm partnering with the team as an advisor, as a clinical sounding board, as kind of someone who was there from the beginning, but that's once in a while when I'm needed, or when we do an animal lab or something. Your day job is still your day job. For few, they'll make the leap and try it. But again, I think it's really important to understand align your expectations with where things may go or may not, and be fully prepared to dive back into medicine and hopefully prepare that path in case it doesn't work out.
Well, obviously you have a passion for this. You've got to be excited, and that's what you should be looking for. If you're passionate about it and if you're excited, that's going to tell you something. Whereas if you're a year into this and you're going, you've lost your passion, you've lost the excitement, time to rethink.
Yes, and I think what you said a year into this, the other thing I always recommend is people give themselves a time. So when I started iRhythm after I finished the Biodesign Fellowship, I gave myself 6 to 12 months to determine if this is an idea that, while I'm really passionate about it, is this something that other people are passionate enough to give me money? I actually went to a lot of well-known cardiology innovators like Paul Yock, who's a founder of the Biodesign Program, Julio Palma, and it's like, kill this idea. And then you want to know things that other people, you don't want to invest 3 years of your time and the opportunity cost to basically.
And the first guy who looks at it goes, this is stupid.
Yeah, or when he's like, I'm not sure, here's the risks. You want to know that ahead of time. But the typical thing for most innovators, they don't want to hear that. They want to continue to drink the Kool-Aid. And I think but the good thing is if you hear kind of tempered, but enthusiasm, and then you look at the risks that are in front of you and say that's something I haven't done, but I could do it. Or if it's something that, I've never coded in my life and I don't have it, maybe this is not the right book. At least you get data, just like good physicians, to make a decision. And if you give your time, set a reasonable time frame that's acceptable to you, your partners, your family, and yourself, and hold to it. Meaning because I think the other thing is creep. Well, I'm so close and I think I'm there, and that always happens. Right. But yes, enthusiasm has to start, but then you have to make sure that enthusiasm is shared by others. Yes. And the other thing that it's important is that the macroeconomic and healthcare environment continues to change. So you might have a great idea whose time has not come yet, because it might be, right now we're in a fee-for-service click charge environment where unfortunately decisions still get made by how it generates revenue. If you have a very value-driven device, it might be important to set the stage, but know that its place as ACA continues to roll out may be really valuable in a few years. Though you might have challenge with adoption right now based on the way RVU systems and generating revenue for hospitals are today. But these are things you need to take into account. And again, I think if you lay out all the cards and it seems like I can figure these out, I think these are reasonable, and here are some people who are professional investors say yeah, when you get there it makes sense, but give yourself a time budget and get data that is not only what you think.
Exactly. And if this is a topic that excites you, then please see our innovation issue, CardioSource World News, where I'm Executive Editor Rick McGuire.